from the Briar Patch. Today we're going to make this fun arrangement featuring blackberries from my creek and roses. Hi, welcome to another video. So dog days of summer, there's not a lot of blooming, so I had to buy roses from Costco, but we did have some really beautiful blackberry stems just ripening, and I thought, how fun would it be to make a basket arrangement featuring roses and blackberries? So let's get started. So I thought it'd be fun today to use fruits and flowers. And it's actually inspired by a recent trip I took to Vancouver. We're driving around the city of Vancouver, and along the freeway and all over the city, you see bramble or blackberry everywhere. I wonder if anybody in Vancouver ever pays for blackberries. You almost don't have to. It's everywhere. And I happen to have blackberries in my creek. Now, this is not a suggestion for you to go plant blackberries. Please don't plant blackberries because once you plant it, they're tenacious. You can never get rid of it. I have it growing naturally in my creek area, and it's taken us years to reclaim like a hillside from the blackberries. And even now, the birds will eat the berries and drop the berry seeds, and we have blackberries, all through the yard, and they're really, really hard to get rid of. But I do have some blackberries right now, and they're kind of at its prime. So I cut stems of it to use. And I thought, well, what would be cute for a berry arrangement? Maybe a berry basket. So I have this fun, rustic, twiggy, natural-looking, nest-looking handled basket. And we're just going to do a fun arrangement featuring the blackberry today. And for the flowers we're going to use with it, I just have roses. I don't have a lot of roses right now in the garden because it's been really hot and the roses are sort of dormant. But I did buy some roses from Costco when I was there this weekend. And I just bought a mixed bunch that had white, hot pink, and red roses. So from the garden, I was able to find a few David Austin Princess Anne roses still blooming, as well as just a few sprigs of the Huntington rose. So I'm going to use that in this arrangement. So it's going to be a range of berry pinks, raspberry pinks, reds, hot pinks, and a little bit of white to go with our blackberries. So let's get started with the greenery. I cut some of this velvety scented geranium to use. I thought it's going to be really fun to use with the blackberries. It just kind of goes, and the green is pretty close to the natural foliage of the blackberries. And I also cut some plumoses fern that I'm growing in the garden. And that'd be fun for this to kind of cascade out of this basket to kind of have a frilly, ferny, velvety kind of texture. And I've cut some of the smaller blooms of Annabelle's that are now all green to use as a little bit of background accent flower to set off all these berry and red colors. Okay, so what I have lining the basket is a single-use food storage container, and the mechanics we're going to use today is just a third block of Oasis floral foam. I'm going to green in very lightly with the scented geranium. We don't have a lot of space, and there are a lot of beautiful materials I want to use, so I don't want to green in too aggressively, but I do want to sort of hide that transition between the plastic container and the basket. So did you know that blackberries are in the rose family? So when I fertilize my roses, and the blackberry that is growing on the hillside are super happy. It grows even more aggressively. Okay. And I'm cutting some of the leaves kind of short. When you want to cover something well, instead of putting in gobs and gobs of greenery, sometimes just cut a few leaves really short, set it deep in the foam, and it'll cover it really well. These are all the tricks from doing thousands and thousands of centerpieces. Saves time and materials. Like this is a nice side branch, side leaf that I'm going to cut really short because it's kind of a large leaf, and it's way below the rest of the leaves. So it's going to be wasted anyway. I'm going to just set it down really close to the foam, and it covers really well. Same thing here. You see how the leaves are are up here, and then there's one way down here. I'm going to cut that off, cut it really short, and set it deep in the foam. Okay. And I might just use one little bit of this Annabelle hydrangea just as background. I love using hydrangea. It's another way to hide your mechanics without having too much greenery. That's one of the tricks in my last video I think I showed you, that we just use hydrangeas kind of to fill in space. That makes your centerpieces and arrangements look much fuller if it's not a lot of greenery and some flowers. If you use the background, if you use some hydrangeas and greenery, it looks like it's very flower filled and very lush. So I'm going to stop adding greeneries and hydrangeas because there's a lot of other things I want to add. Let's start using our blackberries. Look at how pretty they are. They're not that thorny at the tips of the blackberries. It's not too bad. But be careful if you're going to use them because they can get very thorny. I kept some of the blackberry foliage on because it's so pretty. And I cut these a few days ago and put in a vase, and I'm just really surprised at how well they last, because I just put it in a vase with water just like you would if it were a cut flower. And when I first cut them, the berries were mostly red and a lot of them are turning black. That's fine. I think the black would be beautiful too. I'm going to add in some more berries, but I'm going to save a few sprigs because after I add the roses in, I want to have a few berries left to kind of add in so that they are more prominently displayed. Because sometimes what I do is I'll put the berries in and then I overdo the roses like I always do, put too many flowers in, and you won't see the berries. And I'm going to use a few stems of my garden roses. Okay, so this is sort of my thinking. There's always a narrative going in my head when I have a design. So I'm thinking we're walking in a beautiful English countryside garden. There's a briar patch and these old world roses growing near it. And that's sort of how all this came together. Just wanted to have that combination of these garden style roses with the bramble. Ooh, they're thorny. I didn't bother to dethorn them because I'm only doing 3 stems. But boy, I'm suffering for it now. See how that's really pretty? Just having a little bit of the David Austin roses mixed with the store-bought roses, I think just gives it so much charm. They're all stuck together. Okay. And they have all these little side buds and that rosette-shaped flower. I just think it's so pretty. Very English, right? My favorite gardens are the ones I've seen in England. They just know how to do gardens. The climate is just perfect in England. Beautiful gardens. Okay. I'm going to reserve this because I want to add some other colors in. I don't want it to be just all pink. See, it's hard when you're doing kind of a small arrangement. The opening's kind of small. Like, you know, I tend to overfill and I'm trying to be disciplined. Look at how beautiful that Huntington rose is. Named for the Huntington Library in Pasadena, California, which has an incredible garden also. I'm going to add some bright red roses. I rarely buy red roses. I don't know, just not a red rose person. But these are really beautiful, very velvety and really great condition from Costco. I added a red rose here. I'm going to add some over here. I'm cutting the roses pretty short and setting it pretty deep in the foam because I want the blackberries to really show. And it's going to be a two-sided arrangement, but that doesn't mean both sides have to look exactly the same. I like, as you know, that grouping style where we're not adding, you know, a red rose here, red rose here, red rose here. And here's some hot pink roses. I thought the hot pink would be a nice transition between the red and the raspberry pink. So you've got kind of an analogous color scheme of, you know, reds to pinks. Because I knew that the berries are not going to add a lot of colors, but we do have a few red berries, and that's why I decided to go with the kind of reddish analogous color scheme. Okay. Let me add a third stem of the Princess Anne so that we don't have just two. Put it right here, like this. And then I was going to add some white roses. What do you think? I think the white would be really pretty too, because I think the white with the red and the pale green and the blackberries, I don't know, just something about that. It's very crisp and would be really beautiful. I have just a few sprigs of white spray roses and then some of the white Ecuadorian roses that I bought from Costco. It was nice that they had a mixed color bouquet at Costco. It was very inexpensive. I think it was 24 stems of roses for $18.99. And it had the bright red, the raspberry pink, and the white. I go, oh, that's a perfect bunch for what I want to do here. Okay. Well, I think the white is pretty with it. I'll turn around so you can see. I added a large white rose, and I'm going to add some white spray roses too. There we go. Some white roses there. Let's add some over here. I don't have any white garden spray roses in bloom right now, so I kind of fake it. We can use like the large white rose with a sprig of the small white rose next to it, and it gives you that gardeny feel. It's one of the tricks I like to do when I'm doing weddings too. We often use spray roses as like a secondary accent flower. First of all, it's an inexpensive way to make your arrangements look really rose-filled instead of like a little greenery like baby's breath or like wax flower. Sometimes I'll just use spray roses as a filler and secondary flower, and it really magnifies like the amount of roses in there. It looks like, oh wow, there's like tons and tons of roses in this arrangement, right? So those are just kind of tricks that if you're doing this professionally, or even if you're just, you know, wanting to create a really lush arrangement without breaking the bank, it's really nice to use spray roses and hydrangeas to give you that flower-filled look instead of a lot of greenery and empty space. Kind of depends on what you're going for. Sometimes some arrangements are beautiful with a lot of negative space as well. I like to add in another white rose, but I almost feel like there's no place for it. Let me stop and add in some more of the blackberries before I add more roses. And, you know, as we're adding flowers, you can see how you almost can't see my Annabelle hydrangeas. So let me see if there's a little sprig I can add later. That's why I reserve some of the blackberries, because I just know that if I put it all in at once and I add the roses in, the blackberries might get lost. And this is kind of the novelty and charm of this arrangement are these blackberries. Okay, so here's a really beautiful one. I'm going to remove this little bit of foliage because I think adding it in now with that much foliage, you're going to cover a lot of the flowers you already added in your arrangement. Now this one still has mostly of these pale red berries. They haven't turned black yet. Well, when I first picked them, they were almost all red, and now they're kind of that black color. They're blackberries, right? Add that over here. Okay. sprig of berries here. So you can really see it, kind of cascading out of the basket. Okay. I'm just trimming off, like there's some berries that have fallen off already, or maybe a bird has taken it, so it's just kind of an empty berry, empty stem. Okay, so that's all the berries I have. Let's see how it looks. It's looking pretty nice, right? So I can kind of stop now, but I think that we want to open it up a little bit, give it a little bit of airiness. So that's why I cut the plumosis fern. I bought a plumosis fern, just a plant, and I planted in a really shady part of my garden, and I'm cutting some stems from it to use today. I think that ferny texture is really pretty with this kind of natural twiggy basket. So I'm going to add some of the fern to the side. Now, one of the tricks I have is when you have a handle basket and you want something to cascade out, kind of follow the line of the handle to kind of come out this way. Like, I'm not going to add a sprig coming out this way in the middle, but kind of on the sides. And then I have one really long stem that I thought would be pretty if we can get it to kind of drape over the handle of the basket. Wouldn't that be nice? There we go. I'm just going to kind of wind it around. It doesn't have to stay perfectly, but it just kind of adds that frilly texture. And since we are doing a two-sided arrangement, I want to make sure we add the fern on this side as well. I also have sprangeri, or asparagus fern. Just volunteer. I think it's just growing under the fence from my neighbors. She must have it planted around her swimming pool. So I have tons of it now. I don't use it often, but it seems to be really, really tough and can take the drought and the heat. So I'll just leave it be. And it's cascading over my wall. It looks nice. So I'm just adding a little to each side. And then I have just one little sprig left. I'll just add it here, just so it looks like you've got this running throughout your arrangement, this fern. See, I think that just makes it that much more charming. So then you just kind of stand back, take a look. Sometimes you have to pull a few roses up because you set it too deep. Sometimes you have to push a little down because it's sticking up too much. I think overall this is pretty cute. So we're all done. I love this little basket arrangement. So you never know what's going to inspire you. I mean, even the bramble in my creek can be something charming. And I want you to go out in your garden and look around, see what inspires you. It's sort of the dog days of summer. My garden's been decimated from 100-degree heat for almost 3 weeks, but there's still something to be picked and used. You can always supplement with flowers bought from the grocery store, but when you have interesting, charming elements in an interesting container, it certainly doesn't look like a grocery store arrangement. Well, thank you for joining me to make this fun berry basket arrangement. As always, please like and subscribe. Send me a comment, tell me what inspired you this week, and I will see you in my next video.